Welcome to the 787 Flight Instruments lesson. In this module, we will discuss the electronic checklists. For ease of use, user selections throughout this lesson will be made directly on the displays. In the aircraft, cursor control devices, or CCDs, are used to select items on the displays. Normal and non-normal electronic checklists can be displayed on any selected multifunction display, or MFD. The electronic checklist system is not required for dispatch. In any situation, a paper checklist or iPad equivalent must be available on the flight deck. Electronic checklists can be displayed on any MFD by pushing the checklist display switch on the Display Select panel, or DSP. The checklists are controlled using either one of the two cursor control devices, or CCDs. Pushing the checklist display switch on the DSP displays the proper checklist. Only one checklist is displayed at a time. Three types of checklists can be displayed: normal, enunciated non-normal that are associated with ICAS messages, or unenunciated non-normal that are not associated with ICAS messages. Some checklist steps must be checked off by the pilot to be completed. Other checklist steps are automatically checked off from sensed flight deck control positions, airplane system status, or ICAS messages. Air-ground logic, fuel control switch position, and ICAS message level determine the checklist retrieval priority when the checklist display switch is pushed. On the ground, with both fuel control switches in the cutoff position and both engine start selectors in normal, the checklist call-up priority is checklists associated with any ICAS warning messages, normal checklists, checklists associated with any ICAS caution messages, checklists associated with any ICAS advisory messages, and unenunciated checklists. On the ground, with either fuel control switch in the run position, or either engine start selector not in normal, or in the air, the checklist call-up priority is checklists associated with any ICAS warning messages, checklists associated with any ICAS caution messages, checklists associated with any ICAS advisory messages, unenunciated checklists, and normal checklists. Checklists can be displayed on multiple pages. Page keys are located on the right side of each checklist that contains more than one page. When a checklist has more than one page and the checklist steps on the current page are complete, Continued is displayed on the bottom of the page, and the cursor automatically moves to the checklist page key corresponding to the next page. Pressing the cursor select switch displays the next checklist page. When the last page is complete, the cursor moves to the normal or non-normal checklist key. If there are no additional checklists in the non-normal checklist queue, the cursor automatically moves to the normal checklist key. Pressing the cursor select switch displays the next sequential normal checklist. If there are one or more checklists in the non-normal queue, the cursor automatically moves to the non-normal checklist key. Pressing the cursor select switch displays the next appropriate non-normal checklist if there is only one in the queue, or the non-normal checklist queue. The Checklist Complete indicator is displayed at the bottom of all pages of the checklist when every page has been displayed and all of the line items are complete, inactive, or overridden. If the flight crew chooses not to perform a particular line item, the line item can be overridden by selecting the Item Override key at the bottom of the page. When a line item is overridden, the text changes color from white to cyan, and the current line item box moves down to the next incomplete line item. If the flight crew chooses to not perform an entire checklist, the checklist can be overridden by selecting the Checklist Override key at the bottom of the page. When a checklist is overridden, the text of the entire checklist changes color from white to cyan, and Checklist Overridden is displayed at the bottom of all pages. Each step in a checklist is referred to as a line item. After selecting a checklist, the current line item box automatically encloses the text of the first incomplete line item. When the cursor is on that line item, the cursor selection box encloses the current line item box. When the line item is completed, the cursor selection box, and current line item box move to the next incomplete line item. Incomplete checklist line items appear as white text. Complete line items appear as green text with a green check mark to the left. Overridden and inactive line items are displayed in cyan. Closed-loop line items are steps in the checklist that involve the continuous and automatic monitoring of switch, lever, or selector position. In a limited number of cases, actual system state, such as flap or landing gear position, is monitored. When the control is in the required position, the line item text color changes from white to green. A green check mark will also be displayed to the left of the line item. The current line item box then moves to the next line item to be completed. Open-loop line items are steps in the checklist that require the flight crew to manually confirm completion by using the CCD cursor select switch. Open-loop line items do not provide any monitoring of control position or system state. Open-loop line items rely on the flight crew to confirm that the required action has been completed, or that a specific condition exists. Open-loop line items can be distinguished from closed-loop line items by display of a gray box located to the left of the line item. When the cursor is positioned within the current line item box and the CCD cursor select switch is pressed, the checklist line item text color changes from white to green, and a complete indicator is displayed on the open loop indicator. The current line item box then moves to the next line item to be completed. Checklist operational notes are used for ongoing consequences of the non-normal condition, such as inoperative equipment lists and operational limitations. Operational notes are selectable through the Notes key at the bottom of the page. After display of a non-normal checklist that includes operational notes, the notes are accessible during all subsequent phases of flight. Each operational note includes a checklist reference for the checklist that generated the note. If there are multiple pages of operational notes, page keys are displayed on the right side of the page. Once all pages of operational notes have been accessed, the cursor is placed on the non-normal checklist key, if displayed, or on the normal checklist key. Operational notes are dependent upon the status of the non-normal condition causing the note. If the condition goes away, the checklist reference and associated notes are removed from the operational notes display. Deferred line items are items that are part of a non-normal checklist but must be accomplished later in the flight, usually during approach. If a non-normal checklist containing deferred items is displayed, the items are automatically attached to the appropriate normal checklist. A non-normal checklist containing deferred items is considered complete when all applicable steps prior to the deferred items have been accomplished. When this occurs, the text "Checklist complete except deferred items" is displayed at the bottom of the page. There are two types of conditional line items within checklists. Closed-loop items, in which the airplane system state is sensed, and open-loop items, in which the airplane system state is not sensed. Open-loop conditional line items are followed by selections labeled Yes and No. If the pilot selects Yes, the steps associated with the conditional line item become active. If the pilot selects No, the steps associated with the conditional line item become inactive and change color to cyan, indicating the steps are not applicable. The current line item box will then skip past the cyan items since they are not selectable. Additionally, any associated operational notes are removed from the notes page, and deferred line items are removed from the target normal checklist when they are displayed in cyan. Yes/No selections remain active even after a selection is made. Therefore, the pilot can change selections at any time. Sometimes a group of two or more open-loop conditional line items are designated as a mutually exclusive set. When the pilot answers yes to any one of the items in the exclusive set, all other items are automatically answered no. However, the opposite is not true. If all of the items but one are answered no, the last item is not automatically answered yes. The pilot must manually select yes to one of the conditional line items in the exclusive set. The closed-loop conditional line item function is identical to open-loop, except the decision is made automatically using airplane system state sensing. When the conditional line item is sensed true, it changes color to green, and the current line item box moves to the first incomplete step associated with it. If the condition is sensed false, the conditional line item and its associated steps are no longer applicable and change color to cyan. Similar to open loops, the current line item box skips past the cyan items. When a single airplane system failure results in a display of multiple ICAS alert messages, inhibit checklist line items allow unnecessary non-normal checklists, also called consequential checklists, to be inhibited from display in the checklist queue. Consequential ICAS alert messages may be displayed as a result of a primary failure condition. For example, an auto speed brake message is displayed as a result of a hydraulic pressure system C condition. Consequential ICAS alert messages also may result from a non-normal checklist crew action. For example, a pack left message is displayed when the crew selects the pack off during accomplishment of the smoke air conditioning checklist. Therefore, corresponding consequential checklists are inhibited by inhibit checklist line items in the primary checklist. When this occurs, the Inhibit Checklist line item lists the consequential checklists which are inhibited. The inhibit also has the following effects on a consequential checklist. The checklist icon is removed from the corresponding ICAS message. The checklist is removed from the checklist queue. Notes are not collected on the operational notes page. And deferred items are not collected in the normal checklists. Additional information is provided for some checklists. It is located at the very end of the associated non-normal checklist. Viewing the information is not required to complete the checklist. Precautionary text is critical information which should be read before completing certain non-normal checklist actions. Precautionary text is displayed directly above the associated line item. Where required, an automatic timer is displayed in the upper right-hand corner of the checklist page. Timers help the flight crew keep track of time delays that are part of checklists. All checklist timers are displayed as countdown timers. Timers can be associated with open loop, closed loop, or conditional line items. An alternate means of operating the checklist is through the use of menus. The normal, resets, and non-normal menus can be selected by the keys at the top of the checklist page, using the cursor control device. An exit menu key is located in the lower right corner of all menu displays. The exit menu key will exit the menu page, allowing access to the normal and non-normal checklist keys. Selecting the normal menu key will display the normal checklist menu. Normal checklists are arranged in sequence. Selecting the normal key or the checklist display switch results in the display of the next incomplete normal checklist in sequence. Selecting the non-normal menu key will display the non-normal checklist menu. Non-normal menu selections are arranged by airplane system. Submenus are then used to select the appropriate checklist. Selecting the Resets menu key displays miscellaneous information and the following selectable resets: Reset Normal, Reset Non-Normal, and Reset All. These keys provide a way to reset multiple checklists. Normal electronic checklist use follows the same philosophy as used with paper checklists. The electronic checklist is to be used for accomplishing normal and non-normal checklists. When using the electronic checklist, there is no need to read aloud or visually confirm items that are complete or green. The normal checklist sequence is pre-flight, before start, before taxi, before takeoff, after takeoff, descent, approach, landing, shutdown, and secure. As each normal checklist is completed, the next incomplete normal checklist is displayed. If a checklist needs to be viewed out of order, it can be accessed using the normal menu. At the completion of each checklist, one of the following messages will appear at the bottom of the page: Checklist complete or Checklist overridden. An ICAS message is provided to alert the crew when a critical checklist is not completed before the next phase of flight begins. Alert logic is provided for 4 normal checklists. In addition, the normal checklist key in the lower left corner of the display changes color to amber, indicating that one or more normal checklists are incomplete. The ICAS alert messages include the Before Taxi alert, which occurs if the Before Taxi checklist is not complete and the airplane is moved under its own power, the Before Takeoff alert, which occurs if the Before Takeoff checklist is not complete and the airplane is on the FMC takeoff runway, aligned for takeoff, the Approach alert, which occurs if the approach checklist is not complete, the airplane descends through the FMC transition level, and the flaps are not in up, and the Landing alert, which occurs if the landing checklist is not complete and the airplane descends below 500 feet above the FMC landing runway. When an alert condition occurs, the ICAS caution message Checklist Incomplete Normal is displayed. The message remains displayed until the respective checklist is completed or overridden. A rectangular checklist icon is displayed with the Checklist Incomplete Normal message as a reminder to the crew to select the electronic checklist. Non-normal electronic checklist use is designed to follow the same philosophy as used with paper checklists. Non-normal checklists are accomplished using a read and do philosophy. If a checklist has memory steps, those steps are accomplished before reading the checklist. Non-normal checklists can be accessed using the Non-Normal menu. Enunciated non-normal checklists can also be accessed by pushing the checklist display switch. ICAS messages determine which non-normal checklist is automatically displayed. ICAS alert messages with associated incomplete or unaccessed checklist procedures are displayed with an icon to the left of the message. The icon is used to indicate checklist status. When the icon is displayed, the checklist for the displayed message has not been accessed or the checklist has incomplete steps. When the icon is not displayed, all checklist steps are complete. There is no checklist procedure for the displayed message, or another message is displayed whose corresponding checklist inhibits display of the icon. When pushing the checklist display switch and a single ICAS message with an associated checklist exists, the non-normal checklist for that condition is displayed. If multiple active ICAS messages with an associated checklist exist, pushing the checklist display switch displays a list showing the non-normal checklists ready for display. This list represents the non-normal checklist queue. If the number of checklists in the queue exceeds 10, a page indicator is displayed to the right of the list. The checklist queue order is similar to ICAS message priority. The ICAS message priority is ICAS warning, ICAS caution, ICAS advisory, and unenunciated. When a message becomes active, the corresponding checklist is automatically placed in the queue. After checklist completion, the message may still be active, but the checklist is removed from the queue. A checklist is also removed from the queue when another message is displayed whose corresponding checklist inhibits placement of the checklist in the queue. Selection of the desired checklist in the queue is accomplished using the cursor, which is initially placed on the first checklist. Once a checklist is selected and completed, pressing the non-normal key returns the display to the queue, if additional non-normal checklists exist. At the completion of each checklist, one of the following messages will appear at the bottom of the page. Checklist complete, checklist overridden, or checklist complete except deferred items. If the checklist was left unfinished, the text in the non-normal checklist key in the lower right corner of the display changes color to amber to indicate that one or more non-normal checklists are incomplete. The ICAS advisory message Checklist Non-Normal is displayed when a non-normal checklist is displayed in the queue with no associated ICAS messages, and the ECL is not being displayed. This situation typically occurs when the crew completes checklist memory items that result in removing an ICAS message from the display, but there is still a checklist hidden in the queue that must be completed. The checklist non-normal message provides a prompt alerting the crew to select the ECL and complete the checklist. A rectangular checklist icon is displayed with the checklist non-normal message, even though there is no non-normal checklist associated with this ICAS message. The message is removed when the ECL is displayed. Non-normal checklists not associated with ICAS messages are called unenunciated checklists. Unenunciated checklists can only be accessed through menu selection. Unenunciated checklists are the first submenu item when the non-normal menu is accessed. This menu selection provides quick menu access to all unenunciated checklists. The dual database feature provides the flight crew with the capability of activating either of two different ECL databases. Each database has different database part numbers and revision identifications. Revision identification usually corresponds to the operations manual revision or an effective date for the new database. Selection of a different ECL database is accomplished on the Reset menu using the CCD. Database selection keys are then used to activate the desired database. A green diamond displayed in the Active Database indicator shows the active database. The flight crew can select either ECL database as often as desired while on the ground. However, the database selection keys are inhibited in flight. If a checklist is partially complete or complete, and the pilot wishes to begin the checklist again, the checklist must be reset. Selecting the checklist reset key at the bottom of the page while the checklist is displayed will reset the checklist. For certain conditions, such as go-around, resets are used to set the normal checklist back to a previous phase of flight. Checklists will automatically reset during the following conditions: go-around, touch and go, or normal menu choice. All normal checklists beginning with the after takeoff checklist automatically reset if the airplane is in the air, the landing gear is not up, and TOGA is selected. All normal checklists beginning with the after takeoff checklist automatically reset if the airplane has transitioned from air to ground, takeoff thrust is reached with ground speed greater than 80 knots indicated airspeed, and the thrust reversers are not deployed. Previously completed checklists are automatically reset when they are selected from the menu. Checklists can be manually reset from each checklist page or from the Resets menu page. Selecting the checklist reset key on a normal or non-normal checklist will reset the displayed checklist. Selecting the Resets menu key and then the reset key labeled Reset Normal resets all normal checklists. Selecting the Resets menu and then the reset key labeled Reset Non-Normal resets all non-normal checklists. After resetting the non-normal checklists, the flight crew is prompted to reaccomplish all enunciated non-normal checklists that were previously completed. Use of the Reset Non-Normal function in flight is not recommended. Selecting the Resets menu and then the reset key labeled Reset All resets all normal and non-normal checklists. The flight crew is prompted to reaccomplish all enunciated non-normal checklists that were previously completed. Use of the Reset All function in flight is not recommended. There are two types of override functions: item override and checklist override. Item override is used by the flight crew when an item in a checklist will not be accomplished, or an item has been accomplished but the closed-loop sensing is not functioning correctly. Overriding an item when required allows the checklist to be completed. The line item override key is available on all checklists. Selection of the line item override key changes the color of the highlighted step to cyan, indicating the step is not applicable and is overridden. Both closed-loop and open-loop steps can be overridden. Conditional line items cannot be overridden. However, individual steps associated with conditional line items can be overridden. Checklist override is used by the flight crew when a checklist in the non-normal queue will not be accomplished, or after the crew browses a checklist but does not intend to complete it. By pressing the checklist override key, the displayed checklist changes color to cyan, indicating that it is overridden. The checklist overridden indicator is displayed at the bottom of the page. For non-normal checklists, all associated operational notes are removed from the operational notes page, and deferred line items are removed from the target normal checklist. If the checklist display switch is pushed and the electronic checklist system is inoperative, the message "Checklist Not Available" is displayed on the MFD. If the electronic checklist system has been disabled by maintenance, the message "Checklist Disabled" is displayed on the MFD. When the electronic checklist system is inoperative or disabled, checklist icons are not displayed on the ICAS display for any messages.